Savannah Guthrie stood behind the familiar Today Show desk, the bright studio lights casting a warm glow that belied the chill in her chest. It was just past 7 a.m., and millions of Americans were tuning in for their daily dose of news, weather, and lighthearted segments. But today, the air felt heavier. Her hands, usually steady as she held her notes, trembled slightly beneath the polished wooden surface. "I don't have any comment on this story, and I'm not involved in our coverage," she said, her voice cracking just enough for the camera to catch the raw edge. "But I can't pretend I'm not here." She paused, swallowing hard, her eyes glistening. "I want to just take the opportunity to ask people, to really beg people, to come forward. Somebody knows something." The words hung in the studio like a prayer. Her co-hosts exchanged glances, their professional smiles faltering for a split second. Off camera, producers shifted uncomfortably. Savannah Guthrie, the poised, sharp-witted anchor who had become a household name, was breaking in public. And the nation watched. 5 months earlier, the nightmare had begun with a simple phone call that went unanswered. Nancy Guthrie, Savannah's beloved mother, had always been the rock of the family, a vibrant woman in her late 70s with a sharp mind, a love for gardening, and an even deeper love for her children. She lived in a quiet suburb outside Tucson, Arizona, in the same modest home where Savannah had spent her teenage years dreaming of a career in journalism. Nancy had raised 3 kids largely on her own after Savannah's father passed away years ago, instilling in her daughter a fierce independence and an unwavering work ethic. Then, one crisp autumn morning, Nancy vanished. Her car was found abandoned near a hiking trail she frequented, her phone left behind on the kitchen counter, still charging. No note, no signs of struggle. The local police launched an investigation, but leads dried up quickly. Volunteers combed the desert trails. Savannah flew in immediately, canceling a week of shows, her face etched with exhaustion as she joined search parties and pleaded with the media for coverage. At first, it was hope that fueled her. "Mom is tough," Savannah told reporters, forcing a smile. "She's probably just out there somewhere, waiting for us to find her." But as weeks turned into months, the silence from authorities grew deafening. Tips trickled in, sightings of an elderly woman matching Nancy's description in remote towns, strange cars near the trailhead, but nothing concrete. Savannah returned to New York, throwing herself into work like a lifeline. The Today Show had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could connect with viewers, laugh with Hoda Kotb, and tackle tough stories with grace. But behind the scenes, the toll was visible to those who knew her best. Her once bright eyes carried permanent shadows. She arrived earlier than usual, stayed later, reviewing scripts with intensity that bordered on obsession. Then came the latest claims. It started with an anonymous tip to a local Arizona news station. A hiker claimed to have seen signs of foul play near the trail where Nancy's car was found. Blood traces, they said, though tests were inconclusive. A purported witness described a suspicious vehicle speeding away on the day of the disappearance. Social media exploded. Conspiracy theories bloomed like desert wildflowers after rain. Abduction, accident, even something darker involving Nancy's quiet life. Rob Shooter, the Hollywood gossip expert behind the naughty but nice Substack, broke the story wider in his latest dispatch. Savannah Guthrie is exhausted, heartbroken, and doing everything she can to stay strong, he wrote. Sources close to the anchor painted a picture of a woman on the edge. Everyone is praying this nightmare ends soon because nobody knows how much more one person can endure. The article went viral. By midday, it was everywhere: Twitter, now X, cable news tickers, even whispered in the Today Green Room. Savannah read it in her dressing room during a commercial break, her phone screen illuminating her pale face. She didn't cry. Not then. Instead, she straightened her shoulders, touched up her makeup, and walked back onto the set. "I'm determined to keep working," she confided to a trusted producer later that afternoon. Her voice was steady, but her fingers twisted the hem of her blouse. "Mom would want me to. She always said, 'Life doesn't stop, Savannah. You keep going.'" The producer nodded, but concern flickered in her eyes. Staff members had noticed the changes. Savannah's legendary energy had dimmed. She skipped the usual post-show laughs, retreating to her office instead. Lunches were forgotten. During meetings, her mind seemed miles away, drifting back to Arizona sunsets and her mother's laugh. The following week brought more strain. Another expert piece claimed Savannah had reached a breaking point. Colleagues were deeply worried. Rob Shuter doubled down. "She may need to step away from the show as the emotional weight of the Nancy investigation becomes increasingly unbearable." Insiders whispered that Hoda Kotb had been quietly put on standby. The former co-host, now enjoying semi-retirement and family life, was ready to return to the anchor desk at a moment's notice. Hoda had texted Savannah privately, "I'm here if you need me. No pressure, just love." Savannah appreciated it, but the idea of stepping away felt like surrender. Nancy's disappearance wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was a void that work helped fill. Each morning broadcast was a reminder of purpose. "If I stop," she told her husband Michael Feldman during a late-night call, "then what? I sit at home replaying every what if." Michael, ever the supportive partner, urged balance. Their 2 young children needed her present, not just physically, but emotionally. Yet Savannah pushed on. She dove into segments on missing persons cases, subtly weaving in general advice about family safety without naming her own pain. Viewers responded with an outpouring of support, letters, emails, social media messages flooding the studio. "Stay strong, Savannah. We're praying for Nancy." But strength has limits. One evening, after a particularly grueling day where a fresh tip about Nancy's case turned out to be a hoax, Savannah sat alone in her office. The city lights of Rockefeller Center twinkled outside the window. She pulled out an old photo from her wallet. Nancy and a young Savannah, arms linked at a mother-daughter brunch years ago. Tears finally came, silent at first, then in heaving sobs that shook her frame. She thought of the early days of her career, when Nancy would call after every broadcast, proud as could be. "You did good, kiddo," she'd say. Now, the silence was a weight pressing on her chest. The claims about her mother's death, unconfirmed, yet persistent, gnawed at her. Was it true? Had Nancy suffered? The uncertainty was its own kind of torture. As the ordeal stretched into its 6th month, Savannah's determination became a quiet rebellion. She threw herself into a special segment on cold cases, collaborating with law enforcement experts and victim advocates. On air, she was the professional anchor, flawless hair, sharp questions, warm smile. Off air, cracks showed. She forgot a line during rehearsal. Her laugh, once infectious, came forced. Staff concerns grew. A senior producer pulled her aside gently. "Savannah, we've got your back. If you need time." "I'm fine," she insisted, though her eyes said otherwise. "This is what I do. This is how I honor her." Rob Shuter's words echoed in her mind, doing everything she can to stay strong. It felt like both validation and pressure. Hollywood experts often speculated from afar, but in this case, the truth was simpler. Savannah was human, heartbroken, exhausted, yet anchored by duty. Hoda reached out again, this time with a care package delivered to the studio. Teas, a handwritten note, and a framed quote from a shared favorite book. "For the days when the desk feels too heavy," it read. Savannah kept it on her desk, a beacon during dark moments. Meanwhile, back in Arizona, the investigation trudged on. Detectives re-interviewed witnesses. A new search dog team was brought in. Savannah flew out for a weekend, joining a vigil at the trailhead. Candles flickered in the desert wind as she spoke to the small crowd gathered. "My mom touched so many lives. If you're out there, Mom, know we're never giving up." The plea from the Today set weeks earlier had yielded new tips, dozens of them. Some credible, most not. Each one brought a surge of hope followed by crushing disappointment. Savannah learned to temper her expectations, but the determination never wavered. In the quiet hours before dawn, Savannah often found herself journaling, not for publication, but for herself. Pages filled with memories, Nancy teaching her to bake cookies, the pride in her voice at Savannah's first big break, late-night talks about balancing career and family. Writing became therapy, a way to process the unprocessable. One particularly raw entry read, "They say I'm exhausted and heartbroken. They're right. But giving up isn't an option. Work is my raft in this storm. The viewers, the team, their family too. And somewhere, Mom is watching. I have to believe that." Word spread among colleagues about her resilience. A makeup artist shared stories of Savannah